Hello, asalaamu calaykum waraxmatullahi wabarakaatu daawadayaal ku soo dhawaada dalmar t v waxaan haynaa waraysi gaar ah oo aan la yeelanay governor mike DeWine oo dhowr su'aalood aan ka weydiinay dhinaca dhaqaalaha, dhinaca nabadgelyada iyo dhinaca cudurradan covid-ka isdabamarhaya. Waraysigan wuxuu ku bixi doonaa af Ingiriisi daawasho wacan oo xiiso leh. And now join us is our Governor Mike DeWine. Governor, welcome to Dalmar TV.
Good to be with you. Thank you very much.
Governor, the past year has been a difficult year to guide the state through the pandemic. What is the approach for 2022 as more variants appears?
Well, I think we're having, a tough January. This Omicron variant is, raging through the state. The biggest concern we have right now is our hospitals. I talked to Dr. Andy Thomas this morning at Ohio State, Wexner Center, and they're getting really filled up, and so there's a real concern about that. We have sent in over 2,000 members of the Ohio National Guard into our hospitals, and they're focused to a great extent in the northeastern part of the state because that's where we're getting hit the hardest. But we adjust that every single day, and as it hits more towards the central part and the southern part, then we will move those National Guard around. The problem that hospitals are having is not so much space or not enough beds, but the real problem they're having is just not enough people. And that's why the 2,000 members of the National Guard can make a big impact and a big difference. I think once we get through this Omicron, and what we've seen in other countries, we saw in South Africa, for example, is while it is very contagious and it goes up very, very fast, we've also seen it go down pretty fast. So we're hopeful that when we get through with this month, we'll be moving in the right direction. And by the time we get, let's say March, things will be a lot better.
Governor, pandemic's unique impact brings aberration in overall crime. What are the plans that's set for the state to handle the crime rate that has recently spiked?
We in Ohio, we have over 900 local law enforcement agencies. So we are a very local government state. And that's where the services are delivered. That's where we deal with the crime. So I asked the General Assembly to set aside $250 million, $250 million, to go back to local law enforcement to focus on crime. And we are starting now to take applications for that money. We think that will have a significant impact. We are also doing some state projects. One of the things that we have found is that violent repeat offenders are a relatively small number of the criminal element. It's really a small percentage of the overall crime. But those are the individuals who are killing people in our neighborhoods. Those are the people who, a random shot kills a 5-year-old. Just horrible, tragic situation. So we have a bill in front of the legislature that would really focus on the repeat violent offenders, people who do this time after time, and getting them off our streets and frankly, locking them up. So a lot of different things are going on, and one of the other things that we're doing, many police departments do not have the time and do not have the equipment to take, for example, if they go to a crime scene and they find case shells, those really should be entered into a database. And later on, if that gun is found, then you will get a match, and you will know that that gun was used in that particular crime. And many times you can solve the crime. We're giving more assistance and more programs now to the Attorney General's office and to local law enforcement to be able to make those matches. Which is another way that will drive down the crime.
As you may know, there's a silent epidemic, and that epidemic is opioid. What is the way forward to handle this problem that existed before the current pandemic?
Well, you're absolutely right. We have an epidemic, an opioid epidemic. It takes a lot of lives. It is something that we have been focusing on. We need, frankly, more help from the federal government along the border. I actually went along the border and looked at the wall that had been built, talked to border agents, also talked to members of the Ohio National Guard that are along the border. And most of the deaths, 80% of the deaths in Ohio last year, overdose deaths, were caused by fentanyl that was mixed into opioids, was fentanyl to other opioids and mixed in. And that is, fentanyl is coming basically from China. It goes from China into Mexico, and then it comes up through our southern border. So we've got to do a better job. The federal government's got to do a better job on our borders. We have also, when I was the Attorney General, I sued the drug companies and distributors who were involved in really pushing these drugs out that got a lot of people addicted. And as a result of that, we're starting to see some settlements. So we're starting to get some money in from that to help people who have an addiction problem, and also to do prevention. Some of the programs that have worked the best, I think, are the rapid response programs, and I was involved in starting some of those and assisting in some of those when I was the Attorney General, and we continue to do that. And these programs basically take someone who goes to the hospital, they overdose, and instead of just turning them loose and letting them go back, there's an intervention by a police officer or intervention by a specialist who talks to that person and sees if that person wants to get into a treatment program at that time. So in many cases, those actually do work, and we've seen some very good results. We've also done, and we are expanding in Ohio, drug courts. Drug courts, again, people violate the law, but when you kind of drill down and figure out, well, really what's the problem is, they're an addict. And so trying to work with them through the court system so that they can get on the pathway to treatment and get on the pathway to become sober. Those have worked well as well.
Many businesses has been affected due to the virus, especially the minority businesses throughout the state. Are there any programs that's available or that will be available for them 2022 that are not available today?
Well, we've been able to have different programs throughout this, and one of the things that we did do that's unique to Ohio is our workers' compensation. Any business that pays into workers' compensation, we were able to get money back to them. We actually got $5 billion during the pandemic that I talked with Workers' Compensation Board, and they agreed with me to release that money back to businesses. One of the problems, of course, that business has today is finding workers. And that's another challenge, but that certainly is not unique to Ohio. It's something that we're seeing, across the country as well.
Finally, Governor, congressional redistricting maps that you recently signed to the law raises a lot of questions. As a governor, what makes sense about these maps to you?
Well, we have this now in front of the Ohio Supreme Court, both the maps for the congressional districts. And as you know, Ohio lost a congressional district because our population, while it grew, it did not grow as fast as other states. And so that 435 seats are divided every 10 years. So we lost a seat this year. So that is in front of the Supreme Court. The other thing that's in front of the Supreme Court is the legislative district lines. And frankly, the court will tell us, I suspect, probably fairly soon, whether or not what was passed was constitutional. And if they tell us it's not, they will give us guidance, and we will go back and remedy that and do that in conformity with the guidance that's given to us by the Supreme Court. But we don't know yet. We don't know what the decision is going to be made by the court. I was in favor of those. They were certainly not perfect. I felt that those proposals, those maps that were proposed, better matched the Constitution, came much closer to fulfilling what the Constitution said was needed to be done than the maps that were put forward by the Democrats. But ultimately, the court's going to tell us, and we're going to go from there.
Governor, thank you for taking the time for your busy schedule and joining us.
Thank you. Good to be with you. Appreciate it very much.